We're back, bitches! Yeah. So, I was on vacation, you got married and on honeymoon, and we were out. We did nothing to prepare for that eventuality whatsoever, as we just disappeared for a week. We were charmed by the messages we got, and people were like, where's our human reaction this week?
Yes.
And after 245 episodes, 3 years of doing this, we've missed like...
A few.
Most. I think that might have been the first one. We truly missed it. Had 0 things go out that week.
Yes, and with no notice either. So we apologize for that, but also thank you for granting us a small reprieve from the task, and it really is a task, tax even, of keeping up with this ridiculous news cycle that we live in. And by the way, to the notes, the folks that have been wondering about us, we have to shout out Ben. Thank you, Ben, for reaching out via a mutual connection. Not going to reveal it. To request more human reaction. So thank you for that. We appreciate you listening.
Yeah, we're staring into the abyss so you don't have to. And what we're talking about today is exactly that, because we got to catch up on the news cycle. So I was reading around all kinds of the press, all the mainstream press, trying to get a sense of what has everyone been talking about, because I literally did not look at my phone for a week. Wasn't it awesome, total purge. Yeah, after I got out of the sense of anxiety, a sense of like
FOMO.
I'm not being, productive right now, and got over the guilt after that, and then I was pretty good.
Oh, okay, good.
So it took about 4 days of suffering, and then 3 days that were really nice. And then
I'm so glad.
I was right back in. I was like, listen, the Candace Owens, or whatever. So I needed to catch up what's going on, and man, it was like a slap to the face reading through the news, just trying to, just reading like I do, and I'm like looking for, okay, where's the media misdirection going on here? Like our mission, And it was really that combination of economic and Iran bad war news, bad news. That had me wondering if we're indeed looking at the big one here, guys. We've been out for a week, so let's get caught up together and ask the big question: is America's destruction finally upon us?
But before we do, we have to shout out our wonderful sponsors. Aren't you glad I'm on the Stream Deck today?
It's so much better than no Stream Deck at all.
First up, our friends at Revved Up Promo. We love these guys at Revved Up Promo. David, I hear you have a new merch idea.
Yeah, it's I survived the end of the empire and only got this lousy shirt.
Except joke's on you, because it's not a lousy shirt, because it was printed at Revved Up Promo.
That's right.
Guys, if you are looking to level up your apparel game, your merchandise game for your organization, your nonprofit, your small business, you just want to make some t-shirts for your fall golf simulator league once the golf season ends.
Is it like fantasy golf? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, okay. No, not exactly.
Is that a thing, fantasy golf?
Probably, yeah.
Oh, okay.
They have fantasy everything.
Yeah, it's like Pokemon, but for golf.
Yeah,
golfers.
Yeah, I imagine. So you could get t-shirts for your Pokemon squad or your fantasy golf league. But not just shirts, we're talking anything here. They can make a whole wide variety of stuff. And you should definitely reach out to them. RevvedUpPromo.com. Link is in the description. Definitely reach out to those guys.
Yeah, and you should check out Young Americans for Liberty. So we're going to talk about all the big stuff going on today. But ultimately, this is all choice. These are all political decisions that can be made otherwise. You got to change this music. This is not the music moment. Young Americans for Liberty. Doing the real work, equipping everyday, folks that care about these ideas, care about freedom, care about liberty, to make a real difference in their communities, in their states. They have great programs that they do. They do activism events to recruit new people. There's a whole, we oftentimes, talk like everybody's engaged in this, but there's a whole huge group of people in the middle who just need to be engaged with good ideas. And that's what Young Americans for Liberty do. They reach out to everybody else on college campuses and in communities and get them mobilized into real activism to save this country.
Yeah.
That's the future, and we can only win it by getting new converts, by bringing people in and getting them up on these ideas and mobilized and motivated. So
absolutely,
definitely check out the link below.
Absolutely, and before we step off of this one, I have an anecdote here, because we are living through a very dramatic event. In fact, just recently, the debt clock surpassed $40 trillion.
That's right.
And I remember way back when. Way back when.
Just get some flutter in the flag. Yeah.
When we were in college, David, we were in Young Americans for Liberty. Young Americans for Liberty. We did a debt clock where we turned a bunch of sheets of plywood into giant numerals. And the debt at that time, do you remember what it was?
No, I don't.
14 trillion.
We were really upset about it.
And we were pissed. And we were right to be pissed. And so we are even more right to be pissed now that it's 40. And if you want to do something about it, get involved with Young Americans for Liberty.
Cool.
All right,
let's dive into it. So I want to try to catch the overall vibe. So like my picture here of what I'm going to do and what we're going to be talking about is we're going to talk about all the little things that are happening. And it's got to be kind of a fly through, right? We'll get into some details here and there, but overall we're just kind of like, okay, these are all the facts. And then we're going to try to pull it all together. What is happening? And whenever I'm kind of in this mode, I always remember this particular part of one of my favorite movies, and obviously referenced in our intro video because I love it so much, V for Vendetta. So, enjoy.
I suddenly had this feeling that everything was connected. It's like I could see the whole thing. One long chain of events that stretched all the way back before Lark Hill.
1971.
I felt like I could see everything that had happened.
Since 1971.
What happened in 1971?
And everything that was going to happen.
You'll see.
.org.
It was like a perfect pattern laid out in front of me. And I realized that we were all part of it. And all trapped by it. So do you know what's going to happen? No.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Isn't that the feeling you get, when you're looking at the news?
Yes.
Yes. So let's start our flyover. And each one of these, when you think of each one of these, is that little thing he mentions, just like this and this, and like you're looking at, you're like the dominoes, you know what I mean? So, all right. Basically, where we're at with the economy. We'll start there. Well, we're dogged by inflation and low consumer sentiment. So the Wall Street Journal has this. The U.S. leading indicators ticked up in July. So Wall Street Journal, of course, always has the influence to emphasize the upside. Basically, things barely rose by 0.2% across a range of metrics. But one of the things that did not rise, that's buried in the article, is consumer confidence is still very low. Obviously, you know why? Because no one can spend any money because everything costs so goddamn much.
Fair point.
Excuse me. All right, next. Walmart shares slump as weakest sales growth in over 6 years. Yeah, that's not good, because what happened 6 years ago?
COVID.
Yeah. Let's remember what happened in 2020. They got a monopoly for a while there. Every single small mom and pop store was closed down, and they had a monopoly, and people just quit buying stuff because they thought the world was ending. And that's where they are at now. Consumer sentiment low, especially amongst the poorest people who shop where at Walmart.
Yeah.
That's not good.
It's not good.
I mean, think about that in terms of the Gini coefficient, meaning inequality. If people are buying from, if no one's noticing at Whole Foods, but they are noticing at Walmart, that's a bad sign, right? That's a bad sign for everybody involved, right? Because that means your poorest and least well-off in society aren't consuming, in part. Not that consumption is really important in itself, but just rather it doesn't show the sort of economic activity that you need in order to keep things moving.
Right, because just explain for folks like what happens with that bifurcation if it's not being noticed at Whole Foods but it is at Walmart. Like what really happens there?
Well, think of every economic populist resentment out there. It's just embodied in that observation. And the thing with that kind of resentment is it expresses itself in really bad policy economically that can make things even worse. Because the one thing that's reliable about humans, if we really get pissed off one another, we will do anything just to spite you, right? And that is just punishing you. That's why you see the eat the rich, the tax the rich, what was it Hassan Piker said, murder the landlords and wash the streets in their blood. That kind of thing. And
he's a moderate.
And he's a rich guy.
He's a moderate.
He's a rich Marxist, but He's saying that because he thinks that that's what regular people feel, and there's something to that, right? There's incredible amounts of resentment there because of this, and that's not between the $60,000 a year guy and the millionaire. That's between the $60,000 a year guy and the $120,000 a year guy, right? And $120,000 a year is like now, which is still insane for me to even say out loud, is like middle class.
Oh yeah.
You're doing pretty good.
Well, in several of the nation's major metros, it's not enough to live comfortably.
Yes.
You need like double that, actually.
Yeah.
For a family.
Right.
Family of 4.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not good.
Not good.
Not good sign. All right, so let's look at a little bit less short run here. Consumer price index for all urban consumers. So this is food, right? And we've seen some graphs that kind of particularly focus in the last 5 years, right? As we have this dramatic boom, right? Actually, probably 6 years, probably be a little bit more accurate. There we go. Yeah, 2020 downturn. Something happened right here. And then we printed a lot of money, and then it kazow, right? And it's funny how like the food pressure thing, like we were talking about it back in 23, and it was really dramatic, but it was always like, well, that's obviously because of COVID and international disruption stuff but it's continuing, and people are getting exhausted by it.
Yeah.
Right. And so it had its own like narrative, Burrito Gate, which we missed out on. Of course, the minute we leave, when we're both out, Ben Shapiro has to go and shoot himself in the face, right?
I know. But he's good at that.
Yeah, right. And don't get me wrong, he had good observations. Yes, you should budget. Yes, budgeting is good.
You should cook food at home.
Yes,
sure.
That's a good thing. That's and then, but also things are really freaking expensive.
Yeah, $20 burrito is a symptom of a larger problem that he just conveniently did not really address.
Yeah, well, I mean, he said like we should get rid of the tariffs and we should deregulate, right? Which are true things, like those that would improve prices, right? There's no doubt about that. But that's not the core issue. That's not the long lever. That's not the thing that explains the phenomena here. Right. When I look at this, I don't say, oh my God, we just regulated a whole bunch between 2000 and 2000. Come on. Come on. That's not what happened. What happened was that we shut down the economy thanks to the neocon foreign policy that said this is the best thing we can do in the event of a viral attack that was established by the Bush administration. I sound like a crazy person. I sound like Alex Jones right now, but it's true. The Bush administration.
Hold on.
1776 will commence again.
Gotcha.
I'm just saying that we changed the way we responded to pandemics during the Bush administration, and we're still paying the price of that. Because it was supposedly going to be more effective. We went away from the Sweden model and towards the Chinese model because we thought experts could plan everything well. And that's just not true. And it's never been true. But we just keep running and leaning into that and then not changing anything.
Yeah.
I mean, any effort to change it. If the Trump administration tomorrow came out, and we will get to some white pills at the end, hopefully. If they came out tomorrow and said, we're changing the way we respond to pandemics, we're no longer going to do it that way. We're going to the Sweden model. Awesome. We'll do a whole podcast episode about that. That would be great. But when I'm talking about COVID in relationship to food, because all of the money printing did this. So next up,
it should be noted that Trump did print the money at the beginning.
Yes.
It wasn't all Biden's fault.
Yeah, the care packages. Of course, that's what Biden
Act.
comes in. When did Biden become president? 2020. What? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean,
so that this year, 2020 and 2021 is when all the money printing happened.
Right.
And of course, then it hits the economy. Right.
But it happened during Joe Biden's administration, so everyone's like, Biden, is to blame for all the inflation. Well,
yes.
No, it's sort of a lagging indicator. It takes time for that money to trickle into the economy, right?
Yes. And then like raise the overall level. Think about like you're pouring water into a bucket, The water's in slow motion. The water doesn't seem to be really affecting the level until over time, and then it raises the level.
Yep.
All right. So this is gas prices right now. So this is the interesting one from the perspective of like this is the current moment. Like the discourse is, well, the prices were higher under Biden than they are right now. All right. I mean, we're looking at nationwide average of just under $5 during Biden at its peak, and right around $4. High a minute ago was real close to the same, about $4.50.
$4.49.
Yeah, $4.50. So we're looking at not the same, but why did prices in gas go kablamo in this period of time?
Why did they?
All kinds of reasons, right? I have a theory.
Lay it on me.
It's a dubious speculation, but what if When was October 7th? What year was that? 2023?
That's a good question. I want to say 24, but I think you might be right.
Yeah. I believe that it could be that we were building up the strategic oil reserve. I've never had a good explanation of why oil. So oil obviously gets affected by inflation too, in lots of ways. It's like it's an asset, it's a commodity. People trade on it. People use that as a hedge on inflation potentially in the short run, not long run. So that could be some of the phenomena, right? But I've never heard of like a singular explanation for this. But what if a large amount of like this spike was a buildup of the strategic oil reserve, and partially due to Ukraine, right? Because that happens around the time of 2020. Around this time period, and maybe a buildup for another Middle Eastern war that a particular country wanted. And Trump, and especially after 2023, really saw that Biden really wasn't that resistant to holding a particular country that was lobbying for that war restrained, to get them to restrain themselves.
Interesting.
So maybe, just a theory. All right, and then here's of course rents, right? So we got rents across a bunch of different regions in the United States. The city average, I think, is just telling right there. It tells you the entire city average going from 2001 to today. And you just have this, indexed at a baseline of 2001 prices at 100%, and we're now up at 240%.
So we got a 2.4x increase in rent prices between 2001 and today.
Right. And I think particularly is if you look at this time period right here, 2000, you have the same lagging indicator. By this time period in 2022, and it explodes.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone's pissed off at corporate buyouts, and I get it. Corporations buying single family homes pisses people off. Why are they doing that? What is their incentive? It wasn't like all of a sudden 2022 they were like, what's in a good investment? Real estate. Like why did that happen? Well, another one. Look at this. Looking at the big picture, why that happened. What had happened in this little time period right here? The financial crisis.
Yep.
Where does BlackRock get created? After the financial crisis, buying up troubled asset release from the U.S. federal government. So when you look at that curve, what I see is the growth of BlackRock, a huge financial firm that's buying up a lot of these places, and other ones like Vanguard and a whole bunch of other ones that we're printing tons of money, and that benefits the financial sector first. They plow that in order to hedge and grow with inflation. And then before you know it, they're looking around like, what assets can we buy? We're so flush with cash. All the interest rates are super duper low. We can just keep leveraging money. Well, they start going into real estate.
Yeah.
Even more.
Yeah.
And they start doing it. And there's like, well, we'll change it up. We won't just hold them or just loan out the money to them. We're not a that kind of firm. We'll just start renting them out.
I think there could be a more like macro effect here too, not just to place all the blame on BlackRock. And I know you're not doing that, but if you're just a mom and pop landlord, you have, a condo or a duplex or something like that you're renting out. As the cost of inputs goes up, right? Your roofer now costs, 1.5 times or 2 times as much, or your furnace repair guy or whatever, landscapers, utilities, whatever, your property taxes are increasing because the inflation is flooding into the market. People are maybe moving. They're using some of their COVID relief to, get out of the city that they're in and buy a place or whatever it is. Their stock portfolios are going up, so they're putting that money back in. Real estate in general is going up. And so if you're buying a place to rent it and you're buying it at a premium because inflation has driven the price up, you need to get a certain amount out of it in order for that to make sense as a rental. You're not cash flowing it if you're renting it for less than your mortgage. So there's other factors that could be flowing in here, but it all goes back to the money printing.
Right. And money printing and other constraints, like Ben Shapiro said, all the deregulation in the market. Yes, absolutely. In fact, Glenn Beck was on today. And he was like, we really need to get the federal government to reduce the regulations so we can build more. It's like, no, this is a state level. It's a local level problem, Glenn. Like those kinds of, there's a mismatch between what our solutions are and like how to advocate for them on the right now. Right. So this whole challenge has to be more specific if we're going to get people to actually believe in the right wing solution to these things, the free market solution to these things. So you're absolutely right. It's not just BlackRock. It's a larger phenomenon, but fundamentally the largest lever, the biggest lever on this, money.
Yep.
All right. And then here we go. Here's the big one. Going Tucker Carlson hard on this. Large consumer credit card balances.
Ooh.
Now this is the entire data set that they have. It only goes back to 2013, which is kind of wild to me.
Yeah.
At least this is one measure, but yeah, it's really high.
Okay, so our y-axis here is billions of US dollars. So in 2013, we're sitting somewhere between 500 and 600 billion. It kind of gradually trended up, crashed during COVID. I would say one thesis for why that happened is probably stimulus checks and stuff, people paying down credit cards, whatever. So that crashes through 2021, and then it goes up at a much faster rate than it was going up before, all the way up to, almost $1 trillion.
Almost $1 trillion.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And we just stopped just short of it, just clipped low. I bet it goes over it in no time.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So yeah, this is exactly the challenge. Now, this is a good example. Like the government prints a bunch of money to give to people, and what do they use? They use it to pay down debt. A good idea probably for every individual family.
Sure.
But then they got to pay for on the back end, which is then all those prices go out into the economy, all that new dollars go out in the economy, raise all those prices, and now we're paying for it by going back into credit card debt again.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yep.
Terrible.
Even worse.
Even worse.
It's
and now
like,
all the prices go on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's like, trying to treat a hangover with just getting drunk again.
Yes.
It's going to hurt you twice as bad the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not the way to drink, guys.
Not the way to do it.
Get yourself some salt.
That's right.
Hydrate.
That's right.
Stay salty.
Nice.
Dude, that was awesome. All right. So next, our excellent news about the war. Trump declares the Strait of Hormuz U.S. territory.
Love it.
Done. Take that, Persia. What are you gonna do about it? This is the weirdest.
Dibs, no takebacks is what we just said. Breaking. Trump on Truth Social. Dibs, no takebacks.
Yeah, it's done, guys. The war's over. You're welcome. So yeah, you got this great little. Now, this is what's interesting about this is like the comment section is just like, yeah, call it the Strait of America. What do we got to call it? We'll call it all. Like I don't know. It's so. I just find the Truth Social comments always really interesting. Whoops.
Boomer slop.
Yeah. So he posted, there aren't, I'll do it in Trump voice. There are no talks or conversations going on or scheduled with the Islamic Republic of Iran. The naval blockade remains in full force in effect. The Hormuz Strait is open and operating. All water mines have been removed or detonated. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
I'm going to come.
So let's check on that. It's open, supposedly. Open would suggest, okay, so there's a difference between open in terms of policy. He's like welcoming someone in and someone actually walking through your door. If your business is open, but there's no consumers, there's no business.
Dude. My front door is open. I happen to be hiding just on the other side of it with an AR-15. You can come on in if you want. Wouldn't recommend it, though. That's effectively what's happening.
So here's a website, Straits.live is how many ships have passed through the Hormuz today? The answer, 1. And that's August 16th. So we all actually know the rest. Yeah. And that's just to put into context there. The historical rate was between 70 and 100 vessels per day. Now, the Strait of Hormuz is really important for all kinds of reasons we've covered on the podcast before. But if you've never seen it, basically a substantial amount of the world's oil supply, fertilizer, all the things that are made from oil come out of this area. All the precursors for most of the global economy, somewhere around 20 to 25% of it comes from this strait.
Yeah.
Exporting through Iran. We're right by Iran. Let's look at the map. We'll even use his map. This is Persia. This is the Persian Gulf, right? Our allies are down here, the Arabs. The Persians don't like us so much when we killed them all, a bunch of them. So we're at war with them. That's the explanation. So what are we going to do to open up the strait so that someone comes to do business with us? What we're going to do is do economic warfare with everybody who does any business with Iran.
Wait. Have we not already been doing that?
Yes, but we're going to do it even bigger and more. No one has given the Islamic Republic of Iran a greater opportunity to make a deal than me. Tragically for them, I like how he capitalizes, so I know when to do his.
Yep.
Therefore, today I'm announcing the most crushing economic operation ever taken against any country. This will be the economic warfare isolation on an unprecedented scale. Their navy is gone. Their air force is destroyed. Their military factories are now rubble. Their currency is worthless. And their country is hanging on by a thread. Today, I'm announcing that any country that allows its financial institutions, business, airports, or government entities to provide any type of lifeline to Iran will itself face tremendous economic consequences.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it goes on. So, he calls it economic D-Day. So this is again a thing that he introduced at the beginning of the term. Actually, just doing it more so, I guess. I don't know what the plan is here exactly. It's lacking in detail. But what he did at the beginning of the term,
we have a concept of a plan.
Yeah, in order to bring Iran to the table to negotiate against Iran, against their own interest, was to start sanctioning the people who did any economics with Iran. So the axis of evil and Bush's axis of evil conversation way back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So we're talking about is,
North Korea
and Venezuela and Russia and everybody who isn't in the U.S. hegemony is now going to have additional sanctions put on them if they continue those relations.
Isn't China included in that?
Yeah. And imagine if we just sanction China more. What that's going to do to inflation. Yeah.
It feels to me like there is an expectation, a knowing amongst those on the inside that the ship is sinking and it's unrecoverable. And so we're just gonna steam our way right towards the waterfall. Get this thing over with, rip the Band-Aid off, crash the whole thing, start over, figure out a better system. Probably something with a CBDC and a social credit score and all the fun shit that we don't want.
Or we'll get a republic again. It could go either way, really. It just depends on what the ideas are at the time.
But do you just get a republic like it's a present under the Christmas tree, David?
Well, no, you get a republic by advocating for it, by saying, no, this is the thing we want. One thing that Milton Friedman said that was interesting, and it explains why the Volcker Fed did what it did the last time we had high inflation, was that we tried everything else and it failed. And then they looked around the room and said, what's one thing that we haven't tried yet? Oh, raise interest rates.
Really high interest rates?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what ended the stagflation of the 1970s, right?
But we could never do that now because the prices are so much higher than they were in the 70s.
Oh, no, they were high then for what they were paid at the time, right? For sure.
Were they as high as they are now or higher?
Well, not nominally, but in relationship to how much money people had, they weren't high compared to other things. That does make it worse now. I'm not saying it was better then or something like that, or better now than it was then. I'm just saying that people had more savings then, for example, right? People had different sorts of asset portfolios, but they also didn't have a large capital structure of reliable savings via what am I thinking of here? Like Roth IRAs and everything that the retirement community uses now that they're much more rare back then. So it's not exactly the same. And I'm not saying that high interest rates will solve all problems, but I'm just saying that in crisis is your opportunity to make change happen for both the opposition and for us. That's all I'm saying.
Sure. Okay.
And in the moment that the crisis happens, and I think you're right, we could be getting there. Could be. I'm getting that vibe. I'm getting that V for Vendetta vibe.
Oh, definitely.
They're trying. Maybe they're trying to do that. I don't know about their motive. They could be trying to think about it. If you're in their circumstance, you're literally thinking how do I solve all these indetractable problems with one go? With 2 years
without crashing everything.
Yeah,
it's like playing that game of Jenga where there's one block left in the middle and it's the last move left to make, and you're like, I think I can do it.
Yeah, right.
I can do it.
Yes.
And you just pull really fast and hope it works.
Yes.
That never works. It's not going to work.
Well, I'm sure they're doing every sophisticated thing they can think of to try to navigate the debt crisis, the economic crisis, and this crisis all at the same time.
They mean the war.
The war.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know that they're going to be able to do that. I think it's reasonable to be skeptical of that. But, that doesn't indicate their motive isn't to try to do that. And you could guess that. I mean, they have children, Now their children don't live like our children, but, I assume they want the best for the country and things like that. They also want to make money on the way out.
Hell of an assumption to make. That last part I think is probably true.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just trying to be generous.
Yeah. Well,
look at me. I was voted most generous in high school.
Were you really?
I was. That's actually a true fact.
He gave all of his hair away. That's actually what happened. to a kid with cancer. That's how
You're
generous he is.
welcome. You're welcome, little boy with cancer. Here's my hair. It was beautiful. Okay. All right. So let's look at the war in some more detail as far as what's kind of developed. All right. So the last carrier in the Pacific is now being moved to relieve the USS Lincoln. So we now have no aircraft carriers in the Pacific for the first time since World War II. Since we lost all of our aircraft carriers, do we have no aircraft carriers in the Pacific? Now, think about this when it comes to the big story, which like the long-term story of the Asia pivot. All right, the story of the Asian pivot is Obama was like, I don't like doing stuff in the Middle East. This is not good. And China's a rising power. And so he pulls together this whole plan to pivot military strength to Asia in order to ensure our supply lines in Asia, because China's a rising power, pressure in the South China Sea, and North Korea become more of a narrative, right? More of a thing that they're worried about. So they try to do the trade deal, the Pan-Pacific Partnership.
Yep.
PPP. PPP. That deal.
I'm kind of retarded.
gets killed by Trump the minute he comes in. It doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of that was to center the economics of trade across the rest of Asia, excluding China, with the United States. Trump comes in and kills that deal, thus empowering China. Interestingly, that has been my case for a very long time, and no one has ever given me a good reason why that isn't true. And that's just because he doesn't like free trade or lower trade barriers in this way. Or that's not fair. Managed trade of this neoliberal type. Fair.
Okay.
I think that's fair. So this, and now, then he goes on his war path with China, and how successful that is, I think is up to historians to debate. I don't think it's that successful. But
it depends on what you mean by success, I guess.
Yeah, but he continues the Asia pivot in terms of deals with South Korea to put in missile installations and radar installations, and deals with Japan and deals with all these other countries, hardening, selling lots of weapons to Taiwan, like all the stuff we've been doing to harden Asia against a rising China. And then we just take the only aircraft carrier in there and we leave, and like, think about if you're South Korea, like your gas price has just tripled, right? It's bad here. It's real bad across Asia, right? Because Oman and UAE and all the oil coming out of Kuwait and all these areas that are on the other side of the Persian Gulf can't get through. Where did that oil go? It doesn't go to the United States for the most part. It goes to Asia and Europe. So, man, they're suffering. And then we're like, that whole thing where we said we'd protect you. Well, we need to go do a war in Iran.
See you later.
Yeah, it's kind of like a parent leaving the house for a vacation with a teenager. It's like, don't burn the house down. Asia, gone. I hope I don't eat those words. I hope nothing happens. But if you're China right now, you're probably like leaning a little bit. Be like, America's not that great of a partner, are they?
Interesting.
Maybe you should start working with the big dog in your neighborhood rather than the big dog across the ocean, because they have other interests.
Thus, kind of furthering this multipolar shift.
Yes.
The post-unipolar moment for the U.S.
The end of the American hegemony. Oh, wait, that's the same article, David. Yeah, good job. All right, so, and what's going on? Why do they need to relieve the Lincoln? And that's because they've been at sea for 9 months. Now, at the height of World War II, the average time for a carrier or any battleship on the seas in World War II was 4 to 6 months. Right, so 9 months is a very long time for these ships, especially old ships like the Lincoln.
Yeah.
So, and that was after reports of that looked really bad. Like it was a bad.
Wasn't there like a fire on board a while back, and they were like the toilet stopped working?
I think that was another ship.
Was that a different ship?
I think that was a different ship.
Oh, okay, well,
maybe. All right, but yeah, it was that. It was also reports more recently, and a whole narrative arc that I didn't realize happened while I was gone.
Yeah.
That I read about, where there were reports from anonymous. So, take it with a grain of salt. But
anonymous, like the hacker group?
No, from anonymous people reporting to the mainstream press of sailors trying to commit suicide, jumping off the deck of the ship. Like,
I did hear about that as well.
And that was like, oh, that got big. And then Trump didn't handle it that well, and it was a comms disaster. So this pivot, as much as like we gotta do this, for a good reason. This whole thing is happening in part because they went down to Venezuela. They did that whole operation. Then they steamrolled. As they're in Venezuela, an entire protest drums up in the middle in Iran, which I still can't understand. Like how crazy that got. Out of nowhere, that happens. All these people suddenly got weapons and they're shooting at the cops in Iran and like all this stuff. And the protest was probably real for economic reasons, but there's probably someone coming along to fuel that, probably like a clandestine operation by Israel or United States or whatever. But that timing is completely off because then we got a steamboat across the entire globe with the same, folks on board and not resupply, not do anything, expect to arrive there and resupply. Maybe resupply, but then we get into the war. We do the strike on the negotiators, get into the war, and then they destroy the base of where we would be supposed to be resupplying with this ship. So that's why they've been there like this entire time, and nobody else across that area wants to host them because then they're going to get an Iranian missile shot at them.
And it doesn't look like the U.S. has the infrastructure any longer to effectively deter Iranian missile strikes, right? Because they took out a lot of infrastructure.
Yes.
A lot of anti-aircraft stuff.
Yes, and there's a reason why. Here's some more bad news. America's missile-interceptor America's missile-interceptor stockpiles have plunged. All right, so actually, let me double check here. Yeah, this is of August 12th, so not too long ago, 8 days ago. So here's our inventories. We got lots of Patriots. Not really, but they cost a lot. But our THAAD interceptors are down a lot, about half. Pre-Iran war was at 452. Now it's at 239 interceptors. That's, I think, globally, not just in the area. And then the Patriot and THAAD inventories will take at least 3 years to restock, with levels of 4-year 2027 deliveries not until 2029.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
So we got to gap it out till after the midterms, a year after the midterms, in order to actually restock these. So if there is something kicks off across, especially Asia, we're in trouble, folks. We're in trouble. Not that I'm trying to give Xi Jinping ideas, but I don't think he watches the podcast.
I'm sure he's already got ideas.
Yeah.
Respectfully.
Especially after we moved interceptor systems out of South Korea and to Israel. Yeah. So the stockpiles get lower. That's bad, and bad for the war because we don't have escalatory dominance. We can't end it on our timeline. That means they have 3 years of us restockpiling to make sure that we can keep ahead of it. They can just keep this whole thing closed. They can just keep the pressure on the Strait of Hormuz closed. All it takes is a dude with a couple $1,000s worth of drone to fly it over to stop somebody from doing something. So, and not good. Next up is why are oil prices even higher? Because I did show that oil price thing, but it's like, hey, you guys all thought the oil price would be high. Well, that's because we've been using the strategic oil reserve to keep prices low. So this is the strategic oil reserve.
Oh, God.
U.S. SPR inventory since 1990 in millions of barrels. So if you notice...
So we got Desert Storm back here. It's like fluctuating just below, between 500 and 600, it said million barrels? Okay. Hurricane Katrina takes a dip, it looks like. Then it increases, stays high through the Libya supply disruptions. Tanks during Russia invading Ukraine, which was during the Biden administration. And that was, I think, thinking back to the gas price graph, I think that correlates to the sharp decrease from the all-time highs
look at it.
under Biden, right?
Yeah, let's look at it. So we're talking about is this time, wait.
This is the wrong graph.
Yeah, gas prices. This is
it is.
U.S. gas prices.
Okay, go to 10-year. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, so there's Biden 22. So
this right here.
Right there.
Yeah. We're describing is this.
That cliff. Yeah. And then we barely, if you go back to that, we barely start refilling it under Trump's second term, and then it crashes to all-time lows.
Right. So Ukraine is this, and this is despite using a bunch of the strategic oil reserve. Right. We're burning through it to get to here. Well, my point being is, like, what I said earlier about how I think a lot of this is the strategic oil reserve trying to be bought back up. I think that's some of it. Right. We're buying it back up over this time period. Right, and that's why the price was so high under Biden.
Oh, wait, that's a different timeline. That
would be this time.
That would be down here,
right? Yeah. So we're buying it up through that time period.
So you're saying that Russia. The supply of oil is being consumed by the federal government to refill the strategic petroleum reserve,
right?
which is some part of the reason why we're seeing gas prices go up. Obviously, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is another huge factor because even though that oil doesn't predominantly go to us, it's a global market for oil. So if it's hard to get in one part of the world, it's not like we don't face the consequences of those shortages.
Right. It's a fungible resource.
Correct.
Right. So as we're sitting here and it's going high, we're diving down to historically low levels. I think this graph doesn't go back far enough. I think it was 1985 since the last time it's been this low.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that's not good, guys.
So see,
and the
this
economy's much, much larger, much more oil retentive now, like reliant on oil now than it was even then. So
this is another example of where I feel like they're just raiding the storehouse of everything.
Well,
right?
I think they're just trying. I mean, they could be that.
It's
right.
everything. It's the missiles. It's the oil reserve. It's inflation, right? It's like the steam is coming out of all these like patchwork little, plates we've put on this boiler. It's about to explode, like we're seeing the steam start to rise from all these places. We're like,
it's gonna blow.
It's gonna blow.
Yeah, that's the vibe I got.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So when you look at the big picture, I think their motive is trying to keep this thing patched together, right?
Yeah.
Their motive was like, well, I don't know, Venezuela looked really good, so let's try to knock out Iran. It'll get us another foreign policy win, but going into the midterms, that didn't work. Oh my God, it's got even worse.
We just crashed the empire.
Yeah, right, right. Like it's it's always that we think that people in power are super smart and they know but these are humans subject to human things, which is, I don't know, it just feels right.
I'm kind of retarded.
Was it? Yeah. In hindsight, I'm sure they feel that way.
Dude, no, in foresight, it was retarded. Are you kidding me? How many people, including yourself, myself, a bunch of other people who were far more influential than us, Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson are a couple of names that come to mind.
Yes.
Said this was a stupid fucking idea.
In part because of the global economy. Yes, 100%. You can find Scott Horton talk about this in like 2003, guys. So yeah, it's been known. And if you listen to Robert Pape, they said we've been modeling this since the 1980s, that this is part of the problem.
And it never worked.
Yeah, and it never works. And it's always the same story, that they're going to escalate laterally and shut it down the global economy. And that's what happened. So, and I'm not trying to let them off the hook. I'm just being generous with how they probably feel. That's all. I'm not saying like they didn't know. Yeah, they should have known better. 100%. Yeah. So, and then next, but white pill, we might be leaving NATO, Joe. How many times have we said NATO is a completely unnecessary organization in this podcast studio, and we're finally going to leave?
Is that right?
Yeah. Trump says he may try to pull the U.S. out of NATO since allies weren't there for us in Iran war.
You know what else Trump said?
What's that?
A lot of fucking things that he's done the exact opposite of.
It's funny. It's funny. I was talking to somebody. I was like, no matter how many times the guy lies to me about what he's going to do, when he says something, I kind of like him like, oh, maybe, it's just because I want him to be something that I want to like him. I want to. He's so lovable. No, it's not that. It's just like, you just want the best for your country, right? You want like some step that's good for us.
Yes, but there's a point at which the optimism starts to feel like, fool me once, shame on me. Wait, I won't get fooled again kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where I'm at right now. It's like, all right, actually, fuck you. I don't believe anything that you say now.
That's totally
Respectfully.
fair. That's totally fair. And I get that, and I understand that. The biggest thing that's interesting here is that it wasn't Ukraine, right? It's Iran. And just think about what Europe, I kind of laugh when I think about how European leaders think about this right now, right? Think about this. So you're in Europe, you're in NATO with America for all this time. You're partners, you're putting pressure on Russia together, you're arm in arm. Trump becomes president. He starts giving you a hard time about these things. It's probably like, oh, okay, fair enough. I don't like it, but okay. But all of a sudden it's like, I'm leaving because you're not supporting me in the offensive war I took against a non-allied, like with someone who's not in NATO, on behalf of that person who's not in NATO, against somebody who has no threat at all to NATO.
Right.
And they're like, and you're not helping. So you're not a good ally. It's like, this is an offensive pact to keep Russia from invading us. That's it, dude. And like, he's like, I'm going to leave. It's so funny to me. You know what I mean? Especially after all this time of us just giving them our tax dollars, of being like, well, I thought that bought you doing anything for us that we asked you to. And they're like, of course not. Of course it isn't that. Of course this was us working together to keep the Russians at bay. You know, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I just like the idea of them squirming about the whole thing. But they probably look at it the same way you do. They're probably like, yeah, that's funny. You're going to do that.
Yeah, nice one.
Not to mention, I'm pretty sure it would take a Senate movement to do that, to pull us out of the treaty compact that is NATO. It's an official treaty. So he couldn't just pull us out of NATO. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's nice to think about.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a white pill per se.
Well, I was overselling it.
I
just
know
for the
you
fun of
were.
it. All right.
It's like a picture of white pills on a piece of paper, and you're like, I will sell you these white pills someday.
And that's really about the other side of that, is it's maybe also a black pill, because guess what Israel did at around the same time?
What?
Bombed a airport approximately 30 miles from Turkey. And guess who's a NATO member?
Turkey.
Supposedly because it was afraid Turkey would use the base against Israel.
So it's a preemptive defensive strike.
Everyone's a big fan of those nowadays, you know? Yeah, a preemptive defensive strike. Yeah. They were thinking about it. Israel knew they were thinking about it. So no military members were killed, apparently, like no casualties. So that's a good way. Just runways and hangars were destroyed in this base in Syria. Syria obviously reacted negatively. Now, just keep in mind, if you're like, wait, but it's in Syria, what does that have to do with Turkey? Well, it was really Turkish-backed forces that conquered Syria and put a former Al-Qaeda member in charge of their presidency. So when you look at Syria, think of it as like a kind of halfway win for both Turkey to establish, you know, like the basket case that was Syria with the Syria civil war for such a long time, some stability. So hopefully they wouldn't get flooded with more migrants. And also a W for Israel, because now Assad wasn't working with, you know, the rest of the Shia Crescent to move weapons into Hamas.
Right.
So both of them kind of win out of that deal. So maybe there was like a behind the scenes, like, dubious speculation here, but maybe behind the scenes, like, hey, you know, you get part of Syria, I get part of Syria, blah, 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 blah. Just never move your troops into the area. They very verbally mentioned a verge on the breaking the agreed status quo in security matters by permitting Turkish troops to deploy into Syria, right? So they're saying, Turkey, you were about to move troops there, so we destroyed the base before you could, right? Which is an interesting tension, right? Because guess who's a NATO member? Turkey. And so right after that, or around the same time, Donald Trump said, like, we got to get out of NATO. Like, it's like,
oh,
whoa,
my God.
Whoa. Because there are treaty obligations. Okay, get this straight. If Turkey really wants to do Iran a solid, they would do something to provoke Israel to attack them. So then the U.S. would have to attack Israel, because our treaty obligation with Turkey via NATO is that we would go to war with anyone who attacked them.
Wait, run that back again a little slower so I can make sure I got it.
Yeah. So the NATO deal in a very it doesn't exactly work this way. It's not, you know, it's strong language, but it does have some loopholes potentially. But basically what it says is, if you join NATO and you're attacked by a country who's not in NATO, you will come to the defense of the people in NATO.
Sure.
Yeah. So remember in history class when you learned about the giant war machine that was all the alliance system prior to World War I? Well, we said that was a great idea. Let's do that again, and rolled that whole story back into the creation of NATO. Right. Okay. And then after its purpose disappeared, we just kept doing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it would be a very strange and interesting position for the U.S. to be in.
Well, so no, run down the scenario again. So because we would come to Turkey's aid because they're a NATO member,
we would have to go to war with Israel.
If Israel attacked
Turkey. That's always been the insane thing about NATO, right? Because that would mean I'd go with Russia. If they bomb Poland, it would mean
Right.
It was always kind of crazy to bring Turkey into NATO.
It's sort of like
a
guaranteed escalatory spiral. Sort of.
Yeah. Well, at least it makes it far stronger. Now, even I remember we covered this, I believe, when the bomb went awry between Russia and Ukraine and landed in a field in Poland, and we were like, shit, you know, because Russia bombs Poland, which is a NATO member technically, but there was a lot of like back then there was a lot of, well, you know, there does leave some discretion to members to not do it, you know, which you kind of need the latitude so you don't get an escalatory spiral. And so I don't, you know, but would we go to war with Israel? Of course not. I'm just saying, that's the problem with this system. That's the problem with being the global hegemon, is you put yourself into these traps and then you're stuck. Don't do that anymore. Let's be a republic again. That's the case.
Yeah.
So, and as Joe mentioned, pivoting next to the other major problem I'm seeing that kind of correlates with the weak economy and the inflationary economy is we're drowning in debt. So the U.S. debt just topped 40 trillion. I love this website, usdebtclock.org. Bookmark it. Go to it. Give them money.
No, don't bookmark it. It'll just make you sad.
No, do go. We need to stare into the abyss with us here, people. Let's go.
The abyss will stare back at you.
And it looks like 122% of our GDP now is in the debt. Is national
sick,
debt. Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah. It's not a good ratio.
Sick.
So that puts us, high, on the level of World War II. It puts us on the level of Japan and other countries that have had really rough decades. Now, interesting part of that, and let's look at it over time, just to remind everybody how we got here. Yeah. So,
by the way, if you're listening, you really should be watching. This is a lot of graph heavy.
Yes, it is. But this is how we look at the abyss. The abyss is graphs. So 9/11 somewhere back here, and we're kind of on the ebb and flow. We're ticking up, and this is very concerning. But this is the total interest paid on the debt over time, and then the explosion here. From 2021 to 2026. Now, when is COVID?
Right there.
Right here, right? So the total interest on the debt is low because we have low interest rates, artificially low interest rates. Mm-hmm. Inflation starts to kick in. We start
increase interest rates to combat inflation.
Yeah, so we build up all this debt here, and we keep ahead of it, and now we're in this unsustainable explosion of total interest on the debt.
So when wheelbarrow of money buy bread? Because it feels like we're getting there.
Yeah. I don't think it's looking good. Here's Scott Bessent talking about how they're going to fix the national debt.
There's nothing magic about the 40 trillion number, and we can grow our way out of that. So, but what we do want to signal is I think that there's been a lot of misinformation in terms of what's going on with the deficit, what's going on with the deficit to GDP. We actually had a fiscal consolidation for the calendar year 2025. We were at about 5.7% of GDP. And one of the things that's temporary here that's influencing the deficit has been these tariff refunds. And we won't have to do that again. And the Ambassador Greer, through the 301 process, is re-implementing the same level of tariffs. And I would expect that our 2026 tariff income is going to be roughly what it was in 25. And we're going to be able to keep that in terms of the budget consolidation. The other big item in the budget that we're seeing is the hit that we're taking from to revenues for the immediate expensing of factories and of equipment and farm structures. And I think that if people sit back and think that's not government spending, that is actually an investment in the future, and we're increasing the tax base. And that is what measures the wealth of a nation.
Doesn't that inspire confidence? This is the same administration asking for $1.5 trillion in new defense spending from their current baseline of what they're at of $900 billion, right? They're going to increase by $600 billion. And they're like, but the tariff revenue returns of a couple tens of billions, maybe $100 billion or so.
Yeah,
is the big
temporary
problem.
It's temporary.
And then it's a really good thing we don't have a democratic socialist in office, Joseph. After all, we need to spend public money to build factories and farms.
Yeah.
What is happening?
It's an investment in the future. We're growing the tax base, and that is how you measure the prosperity of a nation, is how big the tax base is.
My brothers. Like, it's the same thing that was happening with the war in a very interesting way. We're talking about tactics and minutia. We're talking about, we destroyed their Navy, but we're not addressing the problem. The problem is the missiles. In this case, we're talking about the tax refund or the loan consolidation tactic of last year, which was the thing the Treasury Secretary did. It's not that important because it didn't make a big difference because let's just visualize why it made no difference. That's why. This is why. Here's last year. It made no frickin' difference whatsoever. And then on top of that,
it might have been that little like wiggle in the middle where it stopped going parabolic and then went flat for a second and then kept going parabolic.
Right. So this is the budget. This is the core of the budget. And like, you have a debt consolidation process. You have a Republican majority in the House and the Senate, but you can't pass a budget. Why? You know what that little squiggle might be? That might be the government shutdown, actually.
Oh, yeah.
That might be.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. Yep.
Just from spending a little bit less for just a second. In fact, all those little gaps in the other graphs, that's the government shutdown too.
Oh, okay.
It was so long, it shows up on the graphs. Best time of my life. All right.
Yeah, can we just make that permanent?
Yeah, another bad signal is so the government does these debt buybacks, right? So, and this has become a practice. It was a big practice and then kind of got stalled down a little bit. It was about $2 billion a year of U.S. Treasury swaps, buybacks, not swaps, buybacks that they would do, but they're doubling that to $4 billion. Now that does signal something.
Per year?
Yeah, per year.
Okay.
No, at a time.
I was going to say that seems like not a lot.
That's not a lot.
And I want to say it's like more often than that.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, on a Tuesday.
Yeah. So Treasury Secretary Scott Bennett said the debt payback program announced Wednesday could be larger than $4 billion for the $4 billion upper limit. Okay. So to understand what a U.S. Treasury bond buying is, right? Whatever it is, we're doubling it functionally. Here's an analogy I made because this is hard for me to keep in my head. So for the audience, this is how you wrap your mind around what this kind of means, what the operation is. So imagine you borrow money by selling loans, right? These are what bonds are. You sell them and then you pay them back. You get money now for money you got to pay back later. They give you cash now. In return, you promise to pay them a fixed amount of interest every year plus repayment of the full amount later, right?
Okay.
Those
like a
people,
standard loan.
Yeah. Those people can later sell your loans to someone else on a secondary market, right? So I get a loan and I sell it to a third party.
Which basically says they're now entitled to the income from your payback of the loan.
Right. And so it keeps changing hands. That establishes a price, a secondary market price. Now you decide to buy some of those loans back to yourself from the secondary market. So you take it out of the secondary market and buy it back, especially the older ones that have been floating around the longest and are least valuable. Does that make sense?
Because they have less to be paid in interest and principal.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, you do this. Now, the question is, why is the government doing this? So this is what hopefully the analogy helps elucidate. You do this because you don't think the secondary market, because you think the secondary market is not selling them at the right price, at least the price that you want them to be sold at. They're selling them at too low a price and you want them bid higher. You want them more valuable. So you buy them.
Take some off the market?
So let me be clear. You spend money now to get... You get a debt later now, and then you start spending to get. Sorry, how do I explain this? You spend money now, or you take a debt obligation now to start getting into the market, and then you take now money to then take your future money and pull it back to you, right? Or future debt obligations and pull it back to you, right? Now the conclusion is that the government is doing this for their interest. Now they always sell it like, oh, we're doing this to stabilize the market and to give more liquidity. But it's actually in order to make this market look healthier than it really is, to increase the price of something, of course, so that it looks like something that people want to buy to get people to buy it.
Right.
That's so what more liquidity means.
What is the effect of this buyback program?
Functionally, just getting people to buy more Treasury bonds, right? Just to finance our debt.
But if they do it, right, then it increases demand and it lowers the interest rate. Right? Is that the mechanism? Is that
the ultimate mechanism? Yeah, probably. Keeping the interest rate lower.
If the government goes to sell treasury bonds on the open market to Japan or China or whoever, any buyer, if there's not demand for them at the current interest rate because the buyer is not confident in the U.S.'s ability to be able to repay its debt, which a lot of countries are becoming increasingly not confident in,
right?
Then they need to, that effectively increases the interest rate because that is the price that the buyer is willing to buy that treasury bond for, right? So by buying it back themselves, are they basically sending a false signal to the market that there's more confidence in the U.S. Treasury bond than there actually is to keep the interest rate artificially suppressed?
I think that's exactly right. This is what Peter Schiff said. Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent said the free market is mispricing long-term bond yields. So he wants to use the superior judgment and power of the central government planners to correct the mistakes of capitalism. Good thing we didn't elect a democratic socialist president, right? That's exactly what's happening, right? Is they're saying like the market is setting a price, which is that these aren't good investments. And they're saying, we're going to make it seem like there's more demand in this than there really is. And then maybe people will pile on the train and keep funding our deficit.
Yeah. So if we didn't already lose people in this conversation, basically the interest rate is higher for higher risk things, right? Think of it like a credit card. People that get credit cards, generally higher risk than someone, getting a personal loan or a mortgage with, set income, like they know they're a safe borrower. So credit card interest is high. If the confidence in the U.S. government's ability to pay back its debt is low, the interest rate is high on the bonds.
Right.
Right. And that's what he's trying to correct, is to basically make it seem like the U.S. is a better investment, a less risky investment, by buying back their own bonds, to make it seem like people are buying them, making the interest rate go down.
Exactly.
And
Something
thus the effect being lowering the interest burden on the federal government, right? Because we have a tremendous amount of debt, obviously $40 trillion, and our interest on the debt is going parabolic.
Yeah.
So this is an effort for him to try to bring that back, right? Bring that down some.
Yeah, some. Like when I talk to a friend of mine who knows this far better than I do, he's like, this seems like really small potatoes. Really, it's not that big of a difference, even though it's doubling in size, and it seems like a lot of money compared to the size of the bond market. It's not that much. But just think about it like taking the edge off. You're an alcoholic and you just want a little bit take the edge off a little bit.
It's just a beer at 5:30.
Yeah, right. AM. Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
it does make you wonder. I mean, yes, doubling that is newsworthy.
Yeah.
Is it a precursor to something more drastic? Will it double again in 2 to 4 weeks? Or
That's yeah.
Or
who knows?
double again after
Who
that.
knows
I
what
mean,
the future holds?
right.
Yeah. What will it take and actually to get what they need? As long as it seems like to me, as long as interest rates are high, which they don't control as directly as the Fed does, it's difficult to suggest that they're going to be able to make that big of a difference, no matter how big they are.
Right.
So I don't know what how they get out of this, other than what he said at the very beginning there, which is we grow our way out, which you want to mean we increase the productive capacity of the United States so that we're so productive and have such wealth that therefore we can afford this. Or it means we inflate it away by inflating everything's price so that the burden of the loan doesn't seem so bad. In simple terms, that's a way to understand it. Now, it isn't just that he's doing this buyback thing. It's also that we have to bail out the yen amongst all of this.
right.
So the New York Fed sells euros to buy yen following recent speculation that Tokyo intervened to support Japan's currency. Now, this, I've heard it reported, and reliably, I think, that this is mostly symbolic. It's in order to like make investors feel okay buying Japan's currency, that the U.S. purchase wasn't so big that it really made a difference. Really, Japan's doing the work, and we're just like, yeah, we like that. We're going to spend some euro. It's interesting they use euros to do it. Euros to bail out the yen. Why do you think you did euros?
I don't know.
It's got to be the optics, right? It's got to be the optics, right? The first thing I heard when I saw euros was like, oh. And that is, think about the America First messaging of spending U.S. tax dollars to bail out another country. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's the contention. And that's an interesting narrative there, right? Because it's a tension between reality, which is we're a global empire, and the promise, which is that we would care about our own country again, right? But as global empire, it really matters to our country if the Japanese economy collapses.
Right.
So
because Japan is, I think, the largest holder of U.S. Treasuries.
One of the largest.
Of any buyer in the world, or one of the largest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if their economy goes down and gets unstable, what are they going to do? Sell U.S. Treasuries.
Yep.
And what does that do?
Yep.
Interest rates go parabolic.
Yeah, and they can't let that happen, so they have to keep Japan off the ground. Now, Japan's been doing exactly what we're doing now for a very long time. Right, it's called the missing decades, I think now. I remember reading in 2010 about how Japan was destroying their millennial generation by printing all this money and continuing to do the Keynesian thing. And it's continued this entire time, 16 years of this. And
they're still doing it.
Yes.
Zero interest rate policy.
Just very low very low interest rates, and just continually doing that in order to keep the yen lower than the dollar so that they could have the exchange rate so that they can continue exporting and all those kinds of things.
Right.
Rather than allowing things to actually be market reality, their central bank is constantly intervening to keep them export focused. Yeah. So.
Feels like a house of cards, dude.
Yes, it is. So
soaked in gasoline.
and that's part of the nationalist narrative too. Like the nationalists, they don't want us to be the reserve currency of the world, right? If you want the United States to make more here and export it, the thing about being the reserve currency of the world provides a tremendous incentive for us to import stuff, to rely on debt financing and to do all the highly leveraged stuff we do. And that's really the big shift is like, how much do they believe their nationalist stuff? Right? Do they really believe it or not? Well, it doesn't look like they really believe it that much, at least not now, or they're trying to do it in a very specific way. We got to like build the manufacturing here so that when everything collapses, we have it. You know, that you could make those strategic arguments, and I may even be willing to listen to you about it. You know, like that might make more sense than the alternative, but you're left with this tension that remains, which is if we lose in Iran, which we've lost, but when it becomes broadly understood, assuming it hasn't already,
when the administration admits, which it never will,
when the world admits, then we're in a situation where, you know, the U.S. helps bail out Japan, and global markets suddenly realize that we're unable to win in Iran, and that this war is going to go on forever, you know, as long as Iran wants it to, and there's nothing we could do about it. Then what happens? What happens then? And the psychological effects of that losing of the international diplomacy is huge, but maybe it's just as bad when it comes to loss of influence in the marketplace and these finance markets and the money markets and all these things. So it undermining our confidence in the hegemony and our ability to fix global problems means a flight to reality, a flight to like what is best for Japan now? What is best for Germany or any other country in the world that's been riding this train with us since 1971, since we went off the global exchange for gold standard, the Bretton Woods Agreement. Well, I think they then start pulling back, and then it becomes a cycle of disaster for us. Like you said, they stop buying treasuries, and you know. But who bails us out in that circumstance?
Right.
We bail out Japan, but there's no one to bail us out because we're the reserve.
And then where are we? And what do we have to fall back on? A completely hollowed out industrial base with no ability to manufacture immediately without tremendous capital investment in rehabilitating that. Like if we are no longer the financial center of the world, which we currently are, what are we?
Yeah.
What do we do?
We still make a lot of things, and the global supply chain doesn't disappear, right? We'll still be able to get silicon and chips because we'll still have money and product to sell. But the services industry we're so dependent upon for the world, that might completely change, right? And then what doesn't change are all the other factors that were major contributors beyond global trade, beyond the creation of the container ship and everything else, is our legal structures are one of the reasons why you couldn't build things in America anymore without a lot of expense. And those aren't changing, right? And if there's anything, even if you're the most nationalist person or accelerationist, and you're like celebrating this stuff, the legal status of the EPA or OSHA or all these like reams and reams and like an insane amount of regulations, so much regulations we don't even know how many there are, you're still left with like, with that barrier still there, can we even start to make this stuff again in the case of a collapse? Right? That's a challenge. Yeah. That's the thing. That's why, to me, it's like, why isn't the focus on that? You know, well, it's because of the votes in the Senate. We don't have the votes to change the EPA or how anything works on a legislative scale, right? And like, so now the Trump administration is in charge, driving this ship, but unable to actually make the real changes that would actually make a difference. That's the best interpretation you can make at the moment, I think. Like the most friendly to the administration. I want that to be true. But you're left with, but you keep doing all these things that make it worse, like start a war with Iran that is making it so much more immediate. Right? Imagine if we had been here if war with Iran hadn't happened. You know what I mean? Like inflation would still be bad, but we wouldn't have this driver, the gas price problem, and having to spend all of our strategic oil reserves. We wouldn't have all this confidence loss in the U.S. global hegemony at the same time, right? It would just be Ukraine and Gaza that we'd still be talking about. A very different set of profiles for U.S. global hegemony.
So where do you stand on it? Are you an accelerationist? I mean, is it inevitable? And should we just get it over with?
Yeah, people have been saying it's inevitable since 1971, right? And I never know when it's going to happen. Of course, nobody knows the time or the date here, but it's definitely a thing that's like, when I look at it.
It's like the economic rapture.
Yeah, right. When I look at it, you know, it's very much like that V for Vendetta thing. I see all these things lining up and I'm like, this feels like a thing. And it's just one domino and everything can change. And it's closer now than ever. And we're like on the brink. We're walking a knife's edge, and any moment this could be the thing. Now, it's always been in question. Is it going to happen slow, quick? Or is it going to happen quick, slow? Meaning, is it going to be, like a very sudden change and all of a sudden it's a new world? Or is there going to be like an inflection point and then it's going to be a slow unraveling? I don't know which it's going to be. I don't think anyone does.
It feels like a slow unraveling right now.
Yeah. I mean, we could look back in 50 years and be like, oh, COVID was when it happened, right? Or it'll be, the Iranian war was when it happened. 2008 was when it happened. Like there's a whole, it'll be impossible to know exactly when it is because this is a decentralized system, right? It's a thing that emerges. So it's hard. There is no center point. There is no crux of it. Everyone wants there to be. Everyone thinks it's the Fed, but it's not. The reality is they're responding to all their incentives too, right? So Trump is still out there, and I won't even play the video, but he's still out there blaming the interest rate and the Fed for all this, for all the problems with the national deficit, as if spending had nothing to do with it, So, what are the other ones? You could look at it as like when we started kicking people off of SWIFT. You could look at the rise of BRICS. You could look at it when we started sanctioning Russia during the Obama administration. You could look at it when the tariffs failures started happening. Who knows what the centerpiece is? But
it's a game of Jenga.
It feels game of Jenga. That's another good analogy. Dominoes and Jenga, right? That's where we're at.
Yep.
So, yeah. Now white pills.
Oh, good.
I got some good news I want to leave you guys with. Okay, so number one, prescription drug prices are declining. Look at that. Yeah. So from the 1990s, right, we're bumping down to a negative price. That's pretty impressive.
Wait, okay, hold on. Explain this to me. We're
year-over-year change in prescription drug price.
Oh, year-over-year.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
We're actually at a negative prescription drug price, which is pretty interesting. Last time we were this low was during COVID. During COVID.
Okay, so drug prices are declining.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah. Obviously, it's been on a general decline, which is not what you would guess by the way people talk about prescription drug prices. But that's always the intuitive leap that everyone's always at, right? Which is everything feels like it's getting worse. And this might be inflation adjusted probably. And, it's always difficult to extract that as a consumer. But prices have been flat or declining every month so far in 2006. And that's a good thing. Broader medical care commodities, including drug supplies, were also down. So precursors to drugs and other things in medical were down.
That's great.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
In part due to the most favored nation status stuff, right? But also the Inflation Reduction Act probably played a role too by having Medicare and Medicaid be more like kind of creating structures for them to better bid down prices for the things that they buy in bulk and then incentivize people to buy. So more generics and things like that. So that's a good positive thing.
Great.
Yeah. Be more celebrative. Lean into the white pill a little bit.
I hit the applause button.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
What is this?
Thank God I'm not currently on any prescription drugs. Hope never to be if I can help it. So not really impacting my life terribly right now, but
that's fair. Yeah,
happy for everyone. I'm happy for everyone else. Glad everyone get their GLP-1s for a little bit less money.
That is true. One of the leaders in this is GLP-1s.
Of course it is.
Welcome to America. All right. So I just went to the Department of Homeland Security's website to check out this press release, and it wants me to fill out a survey.
Should we take it live on the show?
I like how it wants me to thank them. Where's the no fuck you, actually? Okay, sorry. All right, so Homeland Security. Trump administration delivers 13 straight months of zero releases at the border. That's just because they changed catch and release. But where we're at is apprehensions were 9,998, roughly 98% lower than the Biden-era monthly average, and 96 below the prior peak. So the daily average was about 323.
So zero releases means no one coming through the border.
Yeah. So what it used to be is catch and release into the United States.
Right.
Right.
Now we're catching and
they have
returning.
to apply for asylum on their side. Right. So that's an important piece of news coverage. Just reminding you, the border's still closed.
Glad to hear it.
Attaboy.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah. All right. And now we're on the FBI's website. We're on a database now. All right. So violent crime rates have dropped. So the FBI's 2025 data shows the largest annual drop in violent crime since the national estimates began in the 1930s. Right, so even larger than the early 90s drop, which was a substantial one and like a historic one. So violent crime overall is down 9.3% from 2024 to 2025. Murder, to be fair, it was down. It was going down prior, but this is the biggest drop.
Love to hear it.
How much is Trump to blame for this? Don't know, but it's a good thing. Violent crime is down.
I wouldn't call it blame. I mean, I'd call it credit. It's a good thing.
Yeah. How much do you credit Trump for?
Yeah.
And then you got the stats, right? So murder and non-negligent manslaughter, other than our next podcast, is down 18%. So that was dark.
It was dark.
The R word, well, that's not right. I can't say the word. Grape decreased an estimated 7.6%. Robbery decreased 18.5%, which is great. That's
because no one has anything left to steal. That's why we're so poor.
Oh,
the thieves are like, I'm not so even
negative.
I'm sorry. That's just a joke. All right, it's a joke.
Aggravated assault decreased an estimated 7.2%, and property crime decreased an estimated 12%. So that's an encouraging thing. And that, some of that might just be having all those troops in Baltimore, to be fun. Sorry.
Damn.
But it's true. It was a very high crime area.
Damn. Yeah.
So
turns out 18.5% of all robberies happen in Baltimore.
Yeah. So I want to leave off on one more white pill.
Okay.
All right. So I think we have, as much as every danger is also an opportunity. And that's what was that guy's name? Not Cass Sunstein. It was the other Obama guy. He said
Rahm Emanuel.
Never
let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah. Is that we are in a crisis. The opportunity in the crisis lies in our ability to move forward and advance our ideas. And there are avenues for that. I know it looks like there's no avenues for that. We're just talking into the void, that we're just consuming podcasts and seeing nowhere to go. But, when you look at opportunities like Young Americans for Liberty, our sponsor, which go check out, click the link below. But also, we see this formulation happening of the dissident right, of people coming together. There was that really interesting photograph of Tucker Carlson and Joe Kent and Thomas Massie. Bennett, you should put that up on
Marjorie Taylor Greene and a few people I didn't recognize.
That that's an encouraging moment. Like, if you're going to stay here, if you're going to live and staring in this void with me, you got to hold on to those moments and be like, for the sake of my children, for the sake of the future, for the sake of everything that I hold dear, there is an opportunity that will come. We just have to hold on and grow our movement of bringing new people to light to understand what's happening. Because most people are just going through and be like, I don't understand why all the prices are crazy. I don't understand what's happening in Iran. We can make a difference with that. You're just killing me with the music.
Come on, I was trying to help.
I know, but it broke me a little bit. And the reason why I did that is I wanted to lean into it, but then everything I was about to say ejected out of my mind. It's just like a cartridge. So, anyways, my point being, it isn't all bleak. We can have both border security and an inflation focused Republican Party, I think, or a third party. Who knows? By people, particularly individuals that, are around our show and in our movement.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll leave you guys with that. Thanks so much for watching. Join our Discord. Find the link below. Talk about this stuff. In fact, our next podcast was inspired by the Discord. Check it out. Be coming out in a day or two. Have a good one, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to Human Reaction. Please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and give us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you want to become a member and support the show financially, check out humanreactionpod.com.